Share screen. Okay. So here's what we're going to do today. I want to give you guys this an opportunity. So I will need all of you to unmute because I want to have a discussion today. So, and this is actually going to, I will give you the first answer to the first case study in the final. So that's going to be real important. So go ahead and unmute. Hey, Zach, I see you're unmuted. Doing okay?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I think that I will get through this week. How
I'm good.
Good, good. Okay. And Haley and Jenna, everybody's getting unmuted. Great. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's walk through the final because I want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm asking you to do. There are 13 different disability categories that we looked at during the semester. We began with speech and language impairment, and we ended with multiple disabilities. And so they're all listed right here. So not all of them will be in the case studies, but a majority of them will be. And you will need to do the following for each case study. You will need to identify the primary disability. If you do not identify a specific disability for a case, and there will be at least one, there's going to be one case that is not a disability category. So that's going to be important. You just write no disability identified, okay? List the characteristics for the disability that you see in that case, what characteristics are there. And then if you think there might be a secondary disability, list it. If you don't, just say no secondary disability. And if you see a secondary disability, list the characteristics. So that the comorbid case. Then you need to list and justify 3 accommodations or modifications that would be appropriate for this particular case. And you need to provide either the book that you found it in or a URL that you found it in, and that's worth 10 points. Each of the other areas are worth 5, and that last one's worth 10. So it's 30 points per case. There's 10 cases. And so therefore the final's worth 300 points. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mhm.
All right, good. So let's look at case 1. Billy is a 7-year-old second grade student in Mrs. Flint's class at Over the Rainbow Elementary School. He is a year older than most of his peers due to being retained in kindergarten. Billy's mother indicated that her pregnancy with Billy was uneventful. However, he was born at 34 weeks. He was about 4 pounds, so that's pretty early. Not super early, but early. He was about 4 pounds at birth, and his APGAR score was a 7. This is a score that when a child is born, a 10 is perfect. Anything below that is not so great. The closer you get to 10, the better it is. So 7 is there's some issues, but nothing significant. He had some breathing problems, which is usually pretty typical of a premature birth. And he had some muscle tone issues, but that was not anything significant for Billy. Billy's parents reported that he met his developmental milestones a little later, especially in the area of language. He was very interested in physical activity. He would rather play with blocks and trains and make those kind of noises. then sat and listened to his mother read or recite nursery rhymes. His parents always believed he was bright, although he talked a little later than his sister. He still had an extensive vocabulary. His parents provided him with experiences at museums and through travel that advanced his vocabulary beyond that of his peers. However, his mother indicated that he had a lot of trouble with errors in word pronunciation. He would substitute W for L, like willow or lilo or those kind of things. And that extended into longer than most children of his age. He entered kindergarten. He was not able to repeat or sing the ABC song yet, and he knew none of his letter names specifically. He could not write his name, and sometimes it was difficult for others to understand his speech. Billy's kindergarten teacher was excellent. Although he loved school, he was not able to keep up with his peers, therefore, he was retained. In first grade, Billy began to give up easily and became more distractible. His parents began having him tutored after school, and he continued to see the remedial reading teacher. Billy became more and more frustrated. Although math was his strength, his reading trouble was affecting his self-esteem, and he was having difficulty in all content areas. He also began complaining about going to school and started to complain about being physically ill. These behaviors continued into second grade. Okay, with that case study, what do you think his primary disability was? Okay, I need somebody to speak up. This is interactive, guys. So somebody, what do you think?
Would it be other health impairment?
Why would you think other health impairment? And what characteristics tell you that?
um, sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me scroll down to the case, up to the case. What specific diagnosis and other health impairment? What health disorder? ADHD? Is that what you're thinking?
sorry.
I know it's early. It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Sorry. I have like a billion tabs open.
I've been there. I usually see my desktop. Yeah.
Okay, specific learning? Would it be specific learning disability because of the way of the words that he confuses backwards? Because I know at the end it has like characteristics, which is the way he pronounces some of his letters and the words.
You're on track. So think about this. That was a very good. The letters, not knowing his letters, not knowing how the sounds of his letters, those kind of things. Those there are two different disabilities that those would go with. Speech and then learning. Speech is not going to be the primary. Look at his age. He's 7 and he's in second grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So language disorder might be a secondary, right? Because it's not the primary cause of him to have problems in his content areas and reading and self-esteem and all those others, but his lack of ability to learn to read is, correct?
Yes.
So specific learning disability is the primary disability. Okay. And let's see, you've got He could not, he's not able to write his name. He did not know his ABCs. He doesn't know the phonemes and the graphemes well at all. He's been seeking, he's gone through the remedial reading teacher support. He was retained, but still not progressing with his current grade level, enrolled grade level kids. So he's giving up easily, which is very typical of a student with a learning disability. He's also distractible because if he doesn't know the stuff, he doesn't pay attention to the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So those are all those elements of a specific learning disability. The secondary category would be speech and language impairment, specifically language impairment, being able to, his expressive language was very poor. So that's an expressive language disorder, but specifically speech and language impairment. Now, does that help you guys walk through this case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So now that I've given you the primary disability and pretty much identified the characteristics for you, also the secondary disability characteristics, I want you, now your part of this for the first one is to identify some accommodations and modifications for the student. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good. Okay. And see, it wouldn't be OHI necessarily because he wasn't identified with either like Tourette's or
Yeah.
ADHD or asthma or some kind of health disorder. And what we do know about kids with learning disabilities, uh, often if they are premature, they're going to have some issues with learning.
Speech. Oh, okay.
We see there's a direct correlation between learning disabilities and premature birth. So he is about 5 or 6 weeks early, and that could have been an issue, and had some breathing issues. So, but we couldn't. There's nothing else there that would identify it. Okay, so that is that information. Bless you, by the way.
Thank you.
That is the first 4 bullet points for case 1. That should help you guys along the way. And you see why it's not speech as the primary, because he's already into 2nd grade and it was a language disorder that it became if he was kindergarten or early childhood, we might have said a language disability, then it flipped into a learning disability. But it's not primary, is not a language disorder. It's a secondary. Okay.
Okay.
Now I'm also going to run down to case 4. And because I don't remember if I fully explained the exclusionary clause for learning disability. But Kareem, case 4, is Kareem Foneska. And he is 10 years old. He was adopted from Kazakhstan when he was 4 years old. So he has receptive and expressive language delays in English, not in his primary language. So that's important. I should make sure that that's expressive language in English. He has had limited environment stimulation, and he's small for his age. Basically, it's failure to thrive stuff. But this is one that we would say this student is not, does not have a disability, a primary or a secondary disability. He is a English language learner, and he has not met any of the, he doesn't have the need for specially designed instruction. He has a need for English language instruction. So this one here is the no primary disability, no characteristics, no secondary disability, no characteristics, say needs English language learning training as the accommodation. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I've given you two. Those are the two that will help you kind of go forward in the rest of the cases. Okay? All right.
Sweet.
So if you want to mute now, I'm just going to go real quickly over Vaughn, Boss, and Shum's book on chapter 14, 15, and 16. But if you want to speak, you're more than welcome to speak. But I know it's early in the morning. So, okay. Collaborating with, should be chapter 14. Let me get up there to the beginning. Yeah, chapter 14, facilitating reading. We're going to just go quickly through this. I would recommend you read the chapter to get the, glean the, this would just be a skeleton, not all the information. Okay, the goal of reading instruction is to provide students with skills and strategies to read fluently and to be able to comprehend fluently. We know that if a child is not a fluent reader, their comprehension is poor. So that's important to remember. Literacy is the ability to read, write, and communicate, and reading, writing, speaking, listening, and viewing in a particular language, and the use of digital literacy. So you'll see literacy instead of reading and all the reading stuff. Now, the science of teaching reading is required for everybody that's learning to become a teacher. So you'll get that in block and some of your other classes. So that's important to, and some of your reading classes. So that's important to remember. There are the concepts underlying reading instruction. You have decoding, alphabet principle, phonological awareness, and fluency. They all go together. And remember, that's where dyslexia falls into, is the being able to not apply the graphemes to the phonemes to the graphemes, the sound symbols to the visual symbols. And then you have reading comprehension and etc. that comes from those top skills. And you need to know where that student is to know what you need to emphasize during instruction for the students. It's complex, but it's very important. The National Reading Panel has the big five. I think these are some of the pieces about standards-based instruction. There are reading specialists and literacy coaches. Some of them work in the RTI, the multi-tiered systems of support. What you want to do as a teacher is establish an environment that promotes reading and literacy, a lot of words, a lot of visuals that provide that. Early intervention for an intensive instruction, direct instruction. and practice. That's very important. These are things, your environment should include these things here. And this is not just for a elementary classroom. I think it should be for both the elementary and secondary and middle school, for all three. Okay. Remember to use formative assessment and then summative assessment with kids. That's very important to know where they are. Assessment is part of instruction, very important. And you need to know why you're doing the testing. Screening and diagnosis is important if the student is falling behind, to know where they're currently at, what their independent reading level is, what their instructional reading level, and then what their frustrational level is when it becomes frustration for them to read. So that, and then you become very scientific about that, and you meet those needs right where the student is currently at. Okay. Progress monitoring is important, not only in general education, but it's special education. We need to know where they're at, how they're doing. Also, remember, we do progress monitoring during behavior stuff. Accountability testing, these are the high stakes testing, the STAR test, etc. Now with COVID, I don't know where we are on the STAR test. I think they're trying to not require it again this year. We'll see after we get the vaccines in place and stuff going, and how next year runs after that. Early intervention and intensive instruction. These are some things that you need to be very involved in your classroom. Remember, begin with explicit and direct instruction, and then get the students to engage in independent practice. That's the best process. So go from explicit instruction, more restrictive, to less restrictive independent practice. Here's for older students. Find books that are at their reading level that are for your content. There's lots of them out there. Lower reading levels, high interest, more visuals involved in the reading, such as graphic novels and those kind of things. Those are great. For supporting ELL students, phonological awareness, phonics, listening comprehension, and building vocabulary for these. I love the whole fact of pre-teaching vocabulary that's needed for a subject. That's a very beneficial strategy for you. Phonological awareness, understanding the small sounds, rhyming, alliterations, blending. This is where poems and those kind of things are very important. Some guidelines for teaching this. Your book will be much more specific than what is being brought out today. So you can teach the alphabet principle, aligning the grapheme and the phoneme together, the visual symbol to the sound symbol. I've already included this in your, it's in your content page for this final module. And here's some more information. Sight words are words that that can't be sounded out that you need to know them by sight and automaticity. This is an interesting, I love this bullet down here. Right here, about 50% of written language is comprised of only 100 high frequency words. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? I find that very interesting. When teaching words, consider their usefulness and the ease of learning. When you get to the classroom, you might want to have word walls and label things to help kids identify what certain things are, and to have a literacy rich environment. That's very important. More decoding strategies. Like I said, word walls, dissecting strategies, those kind of things. Here's dissect, a mnemonic device to know what to do for a student. I grew up with my dad where I would ask him how he's to spell a word, and he would always tell me to go look it up in the dictionary. And we had this huge dictionary that was probably a foot wide, and he would hand that to me and say, look it up. And I said, but if I can't spell it, how do I look it up? He said, use the sounds. So that's how I had to learn. But then found out later when I was in college, I had dysgraphia, so spelling was hard for me anyway. So it's kind of interesting. But try a dictionary or work it out that way. Here's some strategies to help students develop fluency. Fluency is automaticity of reading. There's oral reading fluency assessments that you can do, that number of words a student reads correctly in 1 minute from a grade level text. These are excellent ways to do a quick understanding of where a student is at in their reading. 1 minute, you could do your whole classroom in a teaching period of reading to know exactly where they're at that time. You'll get more of this in your classes on reading. Reading aloud, choral reading, those kind of things will help students read better together. Peer tutoring, here's some great opportunities. Get a higher level student and a lower level student together to work together, and it helps both people. Comprehension, draw pictures. These are tell the story, repeat in your own words, those kind of things as you're reading. Those are important to use. Close reading is a intervention that is it's an intensive analytical reading that one is expected to become college and career ready. You read the text for comprehension, read it overall, and then you read it a second time to annotate and take notes on it, and find the little nuggets of information. So yeah, this is a strategy that I would start teaching your students at middle school on, to read the selection more than one time. The first time is to get the big picture, and the second time to identify the important concepts, and have how you would take notes with reading. Pre-teaching vocabulary, identifying vocabulary words, using context to teach this is very important. I use KWL and question answer relationships. What do you know? What do you want to know? And what did you learn? That's a great strategy. I do with kids. I do KWL charts all the time. It's great. I should have done that more with you guys during this semester. Next semester, I will try to do that. Questions you'd like to ask the author, chunking, previewing, all these are great strategies that you can teach your students. Then cooperative learning groups are another one. These are heterogeneous groups that you work together to create a product. All right, so any questions on reading? I know that was a quick but read the text to get more in-depth information. Now we're going to go over to facilitating writing. We'll walk through this information and talk about it real quick. So chapter 15 is all about facilitating writing. Reading and writing go hand in hand, and more you read, the better writer you become. So movement toward just a standards base, that's writing instruction and research practices is happening. We see that with the STAR test. It's assessed in 4th grade and in 8th grade. So that's another high stakes areas for writing. Progress monitoring. These are things that you can do to help students have permanent products to see how they're making progress. Observations, journaling, portfolios. These are great ways to get students to write. You can start off with drawing pictures and then writing a story about a picture, different things like that. Rubrics can make a very good way. You need to write, say, 5 sentences that include an introductory sentence, 2 or 3 middle sentences, then a closing sentence would be in a rubric, and what needs to be to get them at the level they need to be. Then there's can be portfolios. This is all their work for a year. I like portfolios also. It allows students to be responsible for their own learning. Teaching writing as a process, it's not a product, it's a process. And that's important to understand that. It can be an interactive process, working in teams, working in pairs, etc. Remember, writing is a complex task, and when you do a task analysis, you can identify the simple, discrete tasks that are there for each of those concepts. It's a student-centered process, and it can be a socially mediated process, and can work together in teams. All students can be, you consider them writers, are scholars. Here's some things to do pre-writing. This is what I have to do when I'm starting to write an article, which I'm working on these days. And this is really good strategies. composing, editing, and revising. Make sure that they understand that the first time they write it, it won't be the last time. That's just a draft. And to learn to edit their own work and use peers as editors, and then you as an editor. Just getting them to write, that's a big deal. And then publish. Publish means just getting it on paper, and it's and to share. Conferencing with the students whenever they're in the writing, here's the guidelines for that. When they need to have a conference with you, this is the guidelines for that. That's really important. I think that that would be an excellent thing. And so if, again, all these strategies are things that you can add to your final or to the accommodated lesson plan activity. Narrative writings, telling stories. Down here, story webs are excellent. Use visual strategies like Venn diagrams and those kind of things. I'm a big picture kind of guy, so I would draw a big picture at the top and then take and identify the specific elements of the pieces of below in the story. Expository writing is to present information. There's a please strategy that you can use. There's all these different strategies that you can use for writing. Opinion, argument writing, which you will do a lot. If you go on to graduate school, this will be your big area, opinion and argument, compare and contrasting. Here's some more strategies, stop and dare. Remember, if you want more information about this, go to your book. It'll be more thorough. Spelling skills are important. I depend a lot on WordCheck and Grammarly for checking my writing to make sure. I'm still a terrible speller, but I'm trying to do better as we go along in life. But you still can get, like I said, I have dysgraphia. So you too can get a doctorate, even with a learning disability. All right. Approaches to spelling. People think it's caught, not taught, but I believe that it is taught more. Spelling instruction for students with learning disabilities. So you want to do these things. Using multiple modalities is very important for these students. There's some more information. Some principles for effective spelling instruction. Again, more information is in your book. Handwriting. Some kids have trouble with handwriting and how to form the words. So practice makes perfect. So you need to get them to practice their handwriting appropriately. Ignore all the Common Core stuff. Just look at the TEKS in Texas. Handwriting, I kind of fit into this category. Principles of effective handwriting instruction. Back here, please do not keep harping on your kids to say they have horrible handwriting. Yes, I went back and looked at all my report cards back all the way to kindergarten, and that was every year. But it was back in the 60s and 70s, and people didn't understand about disabilities very much back then. So I was pre-idea. Handwriting, practice, practice, practice. Legibility is the most important goal of handwriting, so people can see it, except for doctors. It's just a joke. All right. Monitoring student progress. You can do this as a daily writing exercises, looking at that, timed writings, those kind of things can be done quickly, easily, and in your instructional time as a formative assessment process. It's part of progress monitoring. And then we get to keyboarding. And sometimes we think it's going to be important to get kids to use a keyboard instead of handwriting, but you still got to teach keyboarding skills. And that can be, and some kids might not ever get keyboarding skills, but practice, practice, practice. There's free trainings on keyboarding skills that you can access. So that's important. You have to directly instruct this. All right. That was writing. Any questions over that? Again, this, like I said, this is just we're going to hit the highlights, and we'll, if you want more information, then you need to get into your book and look at your book, what it has. All right, helping students succeed in math. Here's an interesting thing. I want us to think about this. Math is visually mediated, whereas writing and reading are sound and are auditory and visually mediated. So math is more a visual process. It's processed in the occipital lobe in the back part of the brain that vision is processed. So that's an important piece. So that's why using manipulatives and visual aids for math is a big deal. So that's we'll start off with that strategy right off the bat. Okay. Okay. Just like with the National Reading Panel, there's a National Mathematic Advisory Panel, and pretty soon there will be the big whatever number with math like there is with reading. And those skills are going to be very important, and that'll be coming down the pike. I just want you to be aware of that. Influences on math instruction. These are some things that we see from the mathematics panel. And it's interesting is that reading is also incorporated into math, because you need to be able to read, and then you need to be able to explain it. So that's language, and be able to write it, that's written. So math really is a multi-model piece that you can look at, must look at all pieces of it, not just the visual piece of addition and subtraction, etc., and be able to explain it. So here's the National Council on Mathematics. Mathematic problem solving, it's a major focus. This is what we do a lot. This is why math is real life stuff. You've got a budget. Let's say you got a budget and you want to go to the store and buy stuff. So you need to know how much that you can buy. So that's a problem, and you need to solve that problem. So that's how language is involved with math. Math proficiency. Difficult in the difficulties people have, the mathematical arithmetic order. You see all those things on Facebook about can you do this, get this correct, this problem correct, but you need to know order of operations and those kind of things. And these are things that you need to learn and teach your students, order of operations. Appropriate scientific-based instruction is important for kids with math disabilities. There's things that you need to know about cultural diverse students and linguistically diverse students. There is a specific vocabulary that you need to teach in math, and so that's important. Kids that are gifted, that are advancing quickly, you need to be aware of those kids and accommodate for their needs. Progress monitoring and assessment. I love CBM. I think it's an excellent process and can be used quickly and easily in a classroom. Number sense is important. I don't know how many of you guys have a math aversions, but we need to have a positive attitude toward math and teach people that math is a very important piece, and not to say, I hate math. Ooh, I hate math. And it's like, I had to get over the thing like I hate writing. Well, you got to do it anyway, regardless. So math is the same thing. You got to do it. Let's have a positive attitude. Get it done. Make sure the math curricula meets the National Mathematics Council's expectations. Here's some curricular programs that have been appropriate for kids that are struggling. Saxon Math has been around a long time. It's very possible that you guys used it when you guys were in K through 12 school. Here's some more in supportive instruction. There's tools for explicit instruction, using math manipulatives, teaching for comprehension in math. Again, these are very important aspects. You need to get into the book, the Von Boss and Shum book, to get more specific information. This is another one, constant time delay procedure. This kind of explains it, but get into your book to get better explanations. Correction and feedback. You want perfect practice. So that's why you have guided practice to correct them and give them feedback, and then for independent practice to be perfect. Remember, Dr. Sissa says, perfect practice, our practice makes permanent. So if we want to make it permanent, we need to practice it perfectly to make it permanent perfectly. And adapting instruction for secondary students. Again, these are in your text is more information. Some strategies to help acquire basic skills. Pre-number skills, working with numeration, understanding place values. This can be difficult, especially when you're dealing with money. Money is almost like trying to nail Jello to the wall for kids. It's hard. Fractions, I know a lot of us hate fractions, but again, that's part of life. Think about Thanksgiving and pies. Pumpkin with lots of sour, whipped cream. Yum, yum. All right, more fractions. Manipulatives are great for fractions. Look for patterns of errors for students to teach, to change those patterns into patterns of success. Some kids might need to use calculators, but for some, like under 8th grade and under, that's a modification because it's not allowed on tests for students 8th grade and under. Problem solving skills, here's some strategies. And for that, some more strategies. Again, I want you to go to your textbook and to identify the specific information about those. Here's another one, fast draw. And you need to make sure it's integrated, problem solving is integrated in the curriculum, math teaching. Okay, any other questions, thoughts, concerns? I'm going to give you guys 5 more minutes to ask some questions. You can, if you have a question about anything that's due, like the accommodated lesson plan, the final, anything that's due, this is your time for questions. If you don't want to ask it here, email me the question and we can get back in touch that way. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. If you don't have any questions, you're free to go. I had a great semester. It's been a weird semester, guys. Make sure you fill out the course evaluation. I thank you very much. I've learned a lot. I'm going to do some changes with how things are instructed a little bit for next year from what we had to do for this year with the COVID stuff. So I appreciate you guys being a guinea pig. I learned a lot. Thank you very much. And if you don't have any questions, I'll talk to you down the road. You have a very blessed holiday. Stay healthy. Wear your mask, social distance if you can. Enjoy your time. And please, thank you. Please come see me when you guys are back in school next year, or just email me. Carson or Melanie, do you have a question for me? If not, have a great Christmas, okay?